Let's try this again now that I'm live on YouTube. Hi. My name is Lee. I'm one of the two non-founders of Words are not working with me today. Holy shit. Okay. Hi. My name is, yes, Jen, I can see you. My name is Lee. I am one of two co-founders. We got past that part. For a nonprofit organization called Mental Health for All. Mental Health for All is dedicated to providing mental health services and resources to individuals who cannot afford them or otherwise don't have access to them, regardless of the reason. We have an online class discussion that we run every Wednesday night live, both here on TikTok as well as our YouTube channel. And we discuss various mental health topics. With it being ADHD Awareness Month, the entire month of October, we're going to dedicate all of this to ADHD things. Tonight, we're going to be talking about early childhood interventions for ADHD, as well as parent therapy, what it is and why it's not a bad thing, even though it might sound scary. So, if you're watching this on YouTube, there might be a pause because a comment has come up in TikTok and I am looking at it. If you see a pause in TikTok, it's because a comment has come up in YouTube and I've stopped to look at it. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way. If you find any benefit to this class and you wish to help in our mission, please think about donating if you are in a financial situation in which you can. If you're on TikTok, our link tree is in our bio. And if you are on YouTube, our link tree is link.tr. Actually, nobody is seeing this on YouTube, and it's definitely not getting published now. Anywho, our link tree where you can find the information for where our Venmo and PayPal are located are at linktr.ee/Mental Health University. Okay. We're going to pretend that whole intro did not just happen because that was a hot ass mess. Anyway, how is everybody doing tonight? Like I said, I know I'm getting a little bit of a late start, and I do apologize for that. I was very tired, and I'm cranky when I'm tired, so I needed coffee. Exactly, Jen. What intro? There was no intro. This was not a hot-ass fucking mess. This is not a hot mess inside of a dumpster fire. What are you talking about? Okay. So I want to talk about a little bit about what I want to cover tonight before we get into like the discussion portion of what we're doing. Thank you, Jen. I want to cover what early intervention is and why it's important with ADHD, when ADHD can be diagnosed formally, the various treatments that are available for ADHD, and then I want to give some tips and tricks, or we're going to go over different types of parent therapy that there are, and some tips for parents that are struggling with children who have ADHD. I want to preface this by saying, even though I'm putting this in a spotlight of ADHD, you don't need to have ADHD for these things to work. These also work with children who are neurotypical, and they work fantastically a lot of the time in children that suffer with ASD. Yeah, ASD as well. So it's a great thing. And there are some that you can even modify to help with adults. So let's get started, shall we? Well, as long as there's no other questions. Any questions about what we're covering? I'm telling you, it's one of those days. I have got to shut off my music. God damn. TikTok's gonna, or not TikTok, YouTube's gonna fucking tell me, nope. They're gonna silence me and I can't be live. If there are no questions. Yes, ASD is autism spectrum disorder. It's individuals who are autistic or fall within the autism spectrum. Yeah. And just to note that children who are on the autism spectrum disorder can also have ADHD. It's not one or the other. It is both. You can have both. You don't necessarily have to, but you can. So let's talk a little bit about why early intervention is important. Researchers have found that early interventions are actually more important than the diagnosis itself. So what the hell does that mean? That means that even before you go to have a diagnosis done for your child, you can start implementing these various interventions to help make your life easier at home and adjust the child to a different way of thinking. Why does this work so well, though? Any child can benefit from these various interventions. You do not have to be ASD. You do not have to have ADHD to have a benefit from this. This is one of the reasons I want to talk about my personal experiences today. I have a son. I have a 4-year-old son named Finn. He has ADHD like there is no tomorrow. He's also believed to either have ODD or be ASD. So we are not sure, but the interventions that we're putting in place per the therapy I receive at parent therapy, which we will talk about a little bit later, help to create routines and measurements that will help him succeed in life. This would be true regardless of if he had ADHD or ASD. One of the cool things about a lot of the ADHD treatments, or interventions, I should say, are that they will work for anybody. You don't have to have ADHD in order for treatments, or not treatments, but interventions to work for you. The downside to this is that anybody who has ADHD can't use just any intervention, any form of parenting sometimes. They require a special touch. They require a understanding. So it kind of sucks if you're neurodivergent because you're stuck with all of the things that neurodivergent people can do. But if you're neurotypical, you can do both neurotypical things and neurodivergent things. So there's that. Anyway, I digress. It has been proven that all children benefit from ADHD interventions, not just the ones that have ADHD. This is one of the reasons why the therapist that we go to see for my parent therapy started implementing ADHD early childhood interventions prior to my son being diagnosed. Because it didn't matter if he had the diagnosis or not. We were struggling in the home. And it wasn't because I was a shitty parent. It wasn't because I didn't know how to parent. I mean, shit. I have an older child who thrived and did very well. Something was obviously going on wrong, and my son was obviously not responding to what we were doing as parents. So for that reason, the therapist helped us by implementing early interventions for ADHD and ASD. Early interventions in neurodivergent people are shown to improve their quality of life as an adult, improve coping and completing tasks, improved communication, improved time management, and organizational skills. Remember that when you are young, your brain is like a gosh darn sponge. So they are learning all sorts of things, and it is easier for them to catch on to these interventions at a younger age than wait until they are older and then try to take care of it at that point. Some of the things that you can tell, like you can see a difference in, have to do with things like social skills as well. You might see, I don't really look at the, I am now because I'm talking about it, but you don't really know, I don't really look into the camera. My eyes dart from side to side. And that's because to me, I equate the camera as being somebody's eyes. When I hold a conversation with somebody, I have a very hard time looking into their eyes while I'm talking. And that's a neurodivergent thing. People, you see it all the time in people that are ASD, but you see it a lot in ADHD as well. Adults who did not have these interventions when they were younger to teach them how to socially interact may have a harder time making eye connection as adults. And that's just really a small thing. Time management is obvious. Like, I have shit time management skills. I'm still learning. I'm learning right along with you all. I'm just sharing what I learned. Improved communication skills I have had to take a lot of time to learn how to manage the symptoms of ADHD when it comes to communication. Things like I have a very short fuse. And that's something that's not very often talked about when it comes to ADHD. But emotion dysregulation is a huge issue for people with ADHD. And for that reason, a lot of us tend to anger very quickly over the smallest thing that can happen in our life. It could be something as simple as I accidentally stepped in dog shit on my way to the car this morning. And my day will feel like it's fucking ruined, and I will stew over it, and it will just set me off. It is the smallest little inconvenience, but it lasts so long in my mind that I have a very hard time getting over it. So by teaching children these things when their brains are still developing, when they are still learning and adapting to the world around them, and they're more likely to grab a hold of these interventions and run with them, the more likely those interventions result in different outcomes as adults. Any questions so far? I don't know why I'm doing this on YouTube. I am literally the only person here. Hi, me. Oh, I got lipstick on my tooth. Y'all just gonna let me sit there with lipstick on my tooth and not tell me? Okay. Well, let's just keep this ball rolling, shall we? At what age do you think ADHD can be diagnosed? Go ahead and just let me know in the comments. What do you think the earliest somebody can be diagnosed with ADHD is? I knew you were going to make that jump over there, Quan. I've got 5 years old. I've got 4 years old. Are you going to be napping in my YouTube now? All right, and both of those are actually relatively accurate. Most individuals are not going to diagnose, most professionals, that is, are not going to diagnose ADHD until they're about that age. But the youngest that a child can actually be diagnosed and start showing symptoms of ADHD is 17 months. And that's really a young age. The typical age for diagnosis, however, is about 7 years old. There's still a huge elephant in the room that needs to be addressed when it comes to ADHD, though, and that is the underdiagnosing of girls. This happens a lot. And the reason I want to talk about this for a second, I'm sorry, there's something in my YouTube. TikTok boots people who aren't talking in my chat. That'd be some bullshit. Anyway. Yes. Girls are underdiagnosed with ADHD. And the reason I want to talk about this is because this ties in very closely with early childhood intervention. Remember I said that these interventions can be used at any point for any child? It means you can start implementing these at a very young age, and it doesn't matter if your child has ADHD or not. Well, this is also a way that as parents we can help combat the issues seen with girls being underdiagnosed, like me, having horrible social skills and issues with my time management and organization and my communication and my ability to complete things and my emotional dysregulation, and address them at a younger age, even if they don't have that diagnosis yet. I was 31 when I got my diagnosis. 31 years old. And I know I'm not even the oldest one. But, oh, I'm so sorry, Jessica. I cuss like a sailor. I really do. I do apologize for that. I blame it on the military. Military just has this culture of fuck everything. So, it's important to remember that with girls being underdiagnosed and presenting in much different ways than men do, they tend to take a longer time to diagnose, but placing these interventions in place at an early age can really help improve outcomes if your child does end up having ADHD. If you're looking for a video about ADHD symptoms and such, there's one on my YouTube. I will eventually reshoot it because it's a really shoddy video. I did a TikTok live class over the weekend and shot it for YouTube at the same time. It's a mess, but it does give you the information. Lost my spot. I have ADHD and I can't concentrate. Treatments. When we think treatments, what do we think of? I don't know about you. First thing that pops in my head, medication. When we talk about ADHD, that seems to be what everybody thinks about is the medicated child, the Adderall and the Ritalin and, being in camp. Oh, those are horrible because they're legal meth. For others, it's like, excuse me, but, my Adderall helps me think and function like a normal human being, and I didn't know this is how a normal brain acted. So when we talk about that, I'm going to start with the medications, but then I want to move on to the therapies. Picture schedule. Yes, that's actually a therapy that I will talk about, or a intervention. That's not therapy, that's an intervention. The difference between a therapy and an intervention is that therapy is they teach you a whole set of coping skills to put into your toolbox. And intervention is just one of those skills that you get taught. So it's just one of the skills that's in the toolbox, but the treatment in this case is what's going to essentially be your entire toolbox. With medications, there are two types. Stimulant medications, which is your Mountain Dew and such, and non-stimulant medications. Here's the problem. When a brain is still developing, we don't want to give them a stimulant unless we absolutely have to. because their brains are developing, and that can change how their brain develops. So a lot of times we often go off to the things like the non-stimulant medications. Problem with this is that a lot of non-stimulant medications don't work for a whole swath of individuals with ADHD. It doesn't bombard our brains with dopamine. It just changes the way that we uptake the dopamine that's already in our system. And it doesn't necessarily fix the problem. This can result in a zombie state for a lot of kids. And that means a lot of sleeping and a lot worse emotional regulation. But it is also not uncommon that instead of prescribing a medication for a child with ADHD, that they recommend you give them a cup of coffee or a can of soda. The caffeine in these items is proven to work especially well in children for helping to improve the overall ADHD symptoms. So that is one thing that we can try. I do actually do that with my son currently, is he gets a cup of coffee in the morning with me. Nope, those are antidepressants. These are non-stimulant medications that are dopamine uptake inhibitors or reuptakes. I don't know, Jax. I feel the same way. So caffeine is actually works well if your child is not one, like if you try the stimulant or the non-stimulant medication, it doesn't work well. Before jumping right into stimulant medication, I would talk to a doctor about seeing if caffeine's a viable option, because it honestly might be. Like I said, I do it with my son. However, there's a whole subset of therapies that nobody thinks about, or treatments that nobody thinks about, and that's therapy. The issue is, how the fuck do you provide therapy to a child who can't remember or look into the future beyond 5 minutes? They can't remember what they had for breakfast, and they don't know that it's about to be dinner time. There are, but I am not licensed to talk about those. I do not make medication recommendations or anything like that because I am an RN and I work in public health. I am not a doctor. So for medication questions, diagnostic questions, and trying to figure out if a treatment is going to work well for you, I recommend speaking to a doctor about those. I just give very general information. The main therapy that's used in ADHD is cognitive behavioral therapy. And this is basically a set of coping skills. Allie, my name is Lee. I am one of the co-founders of a nonprofit organization called Mental Health for All. We provide mental health resources, such as this class, and services like therapy to individuals who cannot afford or do not have access to them. So Mental Health University is our online program. I am a registered nurse, and I have degrees in public health. So when I give information, it is strictly from a public health standpoint. It is not from a doctor or therapist standpoint, and the only recommendation you'll ever get from me is to go talk to a doctor. I want to reiterate that. I will reiterate that a lot. I do not diagnose, treat, or make recommendations for anything. I highly suggest that you go see a doctor if you can. Family practice is still a place that you can go for ADHD treatments as well. Some will not do, some do require that you go out to a psychiatrist for an actual diagnosis or a therapist for actual treatments. but it is a good place to start. So CBT therapy is great for older children, who have some concept of what time is and may be able to remember what they've learned in therapy by the time they get back out to the car from the therapist's office. But it's not going to work on a 4 or 5-year-old, right? So what do we do in those cases? Parent therapy. I want to say 1,000,000 times over, please do not be offended or upset if your doctor recommends parent therapy. Parent therapy in absolutely no way means that you're a crappy parent, that you cannot parent your child, that you have failed somehow. That is not true. It is absolutely not true. Parent therapy is there to support the parent in order to provide them with the kinds of interventions that are going to help their child. These are things that you may know about and things you may not know about. I actually recommend starting with family practice before a therapist or a psychiatrist, but if you're looking for a diagnosis, you have to go see a psychiatrist. Therapists do not diagnose. So, what exactly is parent therapy? Well, I'm going to tell you all about what I do on a weekly fucking basis. Like I said before, I have a 4-year-old son named Finn. He is my sun and my moon and all of the aggravation that I have in between. My son is exceptionally violent. He has temper tantrums that will wind him up to the point that he is completely inconsolable. He has done things like kill my pet bird out of spite, threw our other bird out the door because he didn't like the fact that the bird pecked at him while he was being mean to the bird, tried to smother a dog, and chased his brother around the house with a kitchen knife. Why am I telling you this embarrassing stuff? Because somewhere out there, there's a parent struggling just like me, and I want them to know they're not alone. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, children with violent tendencies are scary. We love them. We love them so much, but we are possibly, I know I am, fucking petrified of our child. If you had seen me 2 weeks ago, I had a swollen jaw. Part of that was because my son straight up fucking decked me across the face over not wanting to take a bath. I have had bruises and cuts. I have had toys chucked at me. I have had a tooth cracked, all from my son. I still love him with my heart, and I know he's going through a mental health problem. I'm doing what I can to provide my son the best chance he's going to have in life. And that means getting him help as early as humanly possible. So I go see a therapist on his behalf on a weekly basis. It's called parent therapy, and it has helped quite a bit. The violent tendencies start in the home. At least in our case, they do. And what I'm saying is not a blanket statement. I'm telling you is what my story is. Finn started with temper tantrums, yelling, crying, screaming, that got progressively worse until he wound himself up to the point that he would just throw a fit and have to go to sleep. He would literally throw a tantrum until he fell asleep. He would just pass out in the middle of the floor. It got to the point where we had to sit next to him and keep an eye on him during these tantrums. Otherwise, he was going to end up hurting himself, throwing himself back against the floor and knocking his head on the floor, hitting things on the wall, hurting himself with toys on accident. None of it on purpose. It's all accidental stuff, but we would have to make sure he doesn't hurt himself. But there's also no way for us to calm him down. When it gets that bad, you just have to kind of let it, ride. From there, it grew increasingly violent, and I am the parent that is the abused one in this relationship. I would constantly get hit, kicked, punched, scratched. I get things thrown at me on a daily basis. I've had my kid hit me with a bottle across the fucking mouth, cracking a tooth open. Vodka, that is a very serious situation, and I would recommend that you call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The number and the website for that are both in my bio. I'm not a crisis counselor. I can't provide the support that you need for this, but they are. And they can get you the help that you need, the resources that you need, and the coping skills that you need in order to manage what you're feeling right now. I would highly recommend reaching out to them. Of course. And do me a favor and send me a message when you're done. Just let me know you're okay, all right? My DM is open. What do we do with a child that's like this? Well, when he went to pre-K, he started showing signs that he was moving in that direction as well. And it started with the temper tantrums. At that point, we knew that we had to do something that would stop it in its tracks. So I talked to my personal therapist and was like, hey, this doesn't seem normal. What are you thinking about this? And he goes, why didn't you tell me about any of this earlier? Because those are signs of ADHD, ODD, and or ASD. And I was like, great. He's now in the process of being evaluated, and I go see therapy for him on a weekly basis. The therapies that I have learned have helped calm his tempers at school so that they are minimal and they are decreasing. Now, we've had an uptick in home, but that's probably because he's behaving while he's at school. ODD is oppositional defiance disorder. It's when you don't like authority. You really don't like authority and you refuse to listen to anything authority says to you. This can be one or more people. In my case, it's just me. And it's fun, as you know, the caregiver and the sole provider for my children while my husband is deployed. ASD is autism spectrum disorder, so anybody who is labeled as autistic on that spectrum. So what does parent therapy look like? I sit and I talk to a therapist for an hour about what's going on in the home. We set goals. Our goals are to start lowering, or our first goal is to get Finn to listen to the things that I tell him to do the first time. Calm down, talk it out, go to your room, that kind of stuff. Mine was supposed to be back in June, but then Rona hit and he got stuck over there. We're hoping soon. The next one is to curb the amount of violence in the home. And the last one is to curb the temper tantrums. This may seem the second one is the temper tantrums. Third one is the violence. And that may seem ass backwards. But the reason that the goals are in this order is because if we can get him to listen the first time, that negates the last two. If we can stop the temper tantrum, that lowers the incidence of violence. It's kind of like a trickle down. What was the goal for in your background? I run a nonprofit organization, and we have a goal in October to reach $1,200 to finish our incorporation and 501c3 filing process through the state of Georgia and the government. And the goal today was supposed to be $100 to get us back on track because we are behind. But yeah, that's what that's for. Like I said, my nonprofit is hemorrhaging money and I can't keep up with it personally. That's my problem, though. Anyway, parent training or parent therapy is good for anybody. It doesn't matter if your child has their issues or not. Everybody can benefit from it. This is especially good for children who throw tantrums, have defiance issues, are tuning out parents' instructions. Hey, you're from Jacksonville. That's funny. I used to play, or I was trying to switch my roller derby team actually to Jacksonville because Jacksonville's only 2 hours from me. Sorry, I keep getting distracted. No, Jax, I didn't see it yet. For some reason it didn't pop up. You might have to tag me a second time. It is shown to reduce outbursts and other problems in school, social situations, home life. There are several types that are seen to be very effective. These include things like the Triple P program, which is, thank you so much, the Positive Parenting Program, the Teen Triple P, Incredible Years Parenting Program, Parent-Child Interaction Therapies, New Forest Parent Program, the STAR Parenting, Strengthening Families Program, the COPE Program, Parent Management Training, Parental Friendship Coaching, and Making Societally Acceptable Inclusive Classrooms Project, otherwise known as Mosaic, and the Systematic Training for Effective Parenting, or the STEP program. My parent therapist, the therapist that we see, is doing a whole bunch of these. I want to share with you what we are currently working on. This is called a pride skill. And this has made a huge difference in my home. It's not yet because my website's not up yet. I'm hoping this week. I'm trying to learn web design on the fly. I have no clue what I'm doing. It looks like crap right now, and I'm trying to fix it this week. Pride stands for praise, reflect, imitate, describe, and enthusiasm. With pride, we want to praise appropriate behavior, not demean negative behavior. This means that, if you see your child doing something that you want them to continue doing, like they are quiet for 5 minutes and they're playing nicely and they're getting along with their siblings, you could say things like, I like the way that you're playing. I like the way that you're getting along with your brother. Excellent job keeping your hands to yourself. I'm proud of you for being polite. These kind of things. You give praise for the behaviors that you want. Parent therapy, yes. We are about a month and a half in, and at least we're showing improvement in school. So I'm hoping that will carry over to home life with a little bit more time. Reflect. This allows the child to direct the conversation. Do not direct the conversation for the child. Show the child that you are actually listening. This means in those active listening skills that we learned, use them with your child because we tend not to. Be more cognitive of that. Demonstrate acceptance and understanding of a child. It helps improve children's speech, which I can attest to because both my kids are speech impaired. And we've applied this to both of my kids. And increases verbal communication. This includes things like a child drawing a picture of the star, you saying, yes, you made a star. Or the child saying, I like to play with this castle, and you reinforcing that by showing you're listening by answering, this is a fun castle to play with. It's giving them, talking to them as a peer, one-on-one. Imitating appropriate play. This is where you let the child leave how the play is going. If the child is building something with Legos, mimic the child. If it is a green block with a brown block with a purple block, do a green block with a brown block with a purple block. Don't use it as a learning experience. Imitate what the child is doing. So that way, it shows your child that you are involved with them. This is a bonding experience. This is supposed to help increase the relationship between you and your child. So if the child is, say, I'm going to put baby to get bed, you could answer, I'll put sister to bed too. You're doing the same thing. You're mimicking what they're doing. Describe appropriate behavior. Always allow a child to lead. Show child you're interested. This teaches concepts, models behavior, holds child's attention, and organizes child's thoughts about play. So you're handed a red block. That's a red block. You're making a tower. If you see your kid making a tower. If they come up with a picture of a smiley face, say you drew a smiley face. Be excited about it. An enthusiasm just demonstrates an interest, models appropriate positive emotions, supports positive statements, strengthens positive relationships. These are my personal favorite. Wow, that's great. That's super. I'm proud of you. Things like that. When we put all of this together, it helps to build a better relationship with our child. This is not something you have to do all day, every day either to get any form of benefit from it. In fact, what's recommended is that you just set aside 10 minutes a day for the child. And you sit down and you do these things in that 10-minute time period with your child to strengthen the bond. This in turn starts to address and improve behaviors that the child has in the home. It's a relatively slow process, but it seriously works. So the other things to do with this is that you have to ignore inappropriate behavior. Finn starts throwing a fit because he's not happy about something. I am supposed to turn my back to him and not pay him any attention. But the second that he stops, oh, thank you. I'm so glad that you're using your indoor voice now. I'll be able to hear you so much better. Don't give commands to your child. This is a child-led activity. Don't ask your child questions. This isn't a learning opportunity. Don't criticize your child because that can lead to lower self-esteem. This right here we've implemented for the past 3 weeks. In that 3-week period, my child has gone from me being told that he was about to be kicked out of pre-K to having only 1, maybe 2 meltdowns a day, and some days we have none over a 3-week period. This has done so much to start improving different aspects of his life that if those continue to improve, we may start seeing improvement in the home as well. There are other things that we have to do, though, to start with things in the home. That includes things like creating a routine, managing distractions for our child, limiting the choices because people with ADHD don't like making choices. Being clear and specific about what we want when we're talking to a child, helping the child plan, use goals and praise and other rewards. Discipline effectively, timeouts and sending them to their rooms do not work. There's a reason for that, but that's a whole different class. Create positive opportunities and modeling things like a healthy lifestyle. All of these things together kind of mesh and create this amazing little different kind of parenting style that wasn't what we started with. It's more effective for the child that needs it. And the benefit is, because we don't want to treat one child differently than the other, I can implement it with both my children. And I've seen improvement in both. So, I had more, but I rambled and I started late, so I want to end this right now. If you have any questions about that, though, please feel free to ask them because I am going to be here in the TikTok chat until 10, and I have no problem answering or talking about other things that, ideas for therapies and things that you can implement with a child. I just really don't want this to, I don't want to keep you longer than I meant to, and I've already kept you for almost an hour. And I only meant to have you for 30. Not bad. So I'm going to close down YouTube. Quan, if you want, you can come over here now. I am here every day from 7 to 10. Hi, my name's Lee. My husband's deployed and I have no fucking life. Of course. And like I said, if you have any questions, just let me know. Where do I turn off live on this again? Is my dinner in the way? Yes, my dinner is in the way.